Welcome to the lecture on oligopoly. So this lecture continues the lectures that we started with monopolistic competition last time, which looks at market structures that are in between the two extremes of perfect competition and monopoly. There's a certain feature in real-world markets, namely price wars and strategic competition between firms that we're not able to capture in the market structures that we've considered so far. So in perfect competition, firms are perfect price takers, and so there's no sense in which they're looking at the behavior of other firms and then trying to set their price to capture some market share. In monopoly, in monopolistic competition, the firms have a monopoly over their product. So again, they don't have to think about what other firms producing the same product are doing in terms of the prices and quantity. They don't ever engage in price wars because they have a monopoly over their product. So these market structures that we looked at so far have some difficulty explaining things like the following. If you look at the behavior of airlines, the airlines have their prices that they set, their fares, and what often happens is a airline on a Friday afternoon decides that they're going to raise their fares. And so one airline will raise the fare on Friday. They wait and see over the weekend if the other firms follow suit, and if they don't, if the other firms don't raise their fares over the weekend, then on Monday the firm unwinds it. And so people try and explain this type of behavior as saying, well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to collude in their price setting. They're trying to get firms, all the different airlines, to set the same fares. And so if a airline wants to raise their fares, they kind of announce it out to the other airlines on a Friday. If the other airlines aren't going to collude with them in raising their fares, then the airline just reverses course. And so that kind of strategic interaction is missing in the other market structures that we've looked at. There's also outright illegal collusion that firms sometimes try and do. So it's against the law in the U.S. for firms to get together and set prices explicitly with each other. There was a lawsuit recently, it was filed by Amazon against Apple and the major book publishers, accusing them of getting together and colluding on raising the price of ebooks. And a judge ruled in favor of Amazon and found that Apple and the publishers were guilty of trying to collude in setting the prices higher. And so again, that's a feature that comes out of oligopoly models that wasn't in the existing market structures. In the last lecture, we saw this with monopolistic competitive markets, that there were many sellers. They were all producing these differentiated products, giving them a monopoly over their own product. But because there were other products that were close substitutes, that put a limit on their market power and kind of made the monopolistic competition this perfect blend between perfect competition and monopoly. Okay, but the key there was lots of firms, and each firm having a monopoly over their own product, but these close substitutes. In oligopoly, we're going to be looking at a market structure where there are just a few firms, but they're all producing similar goods. So this is like airlines. You have lots of different airlines flying between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. You know, the planes are more or less the same. What's the service you're trying to get? You're just trying to get from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. So the product is very similar. And because they're producing a similar good, but there's just a few of them, then they can watch the behavior of the other and they can try and strategically interact with them and engage in these things like collusion, or try to, or engage in fare wars and price wars and all these other sorts of things. And so that's the topic of this lecture. So the definition of an oligopoly, which you should know, is it's a market structure in which there's only a few sellers who offer similar or identical products. So just to recap, perfect competition is lots of firms producing identical products. That makes them act as price takers. Monopoly is one firm producing one product. Monopolistic competition is many firms, each producing a differentiated good they have a monopoly over, but with close substitutes, there's zero profits. And then oligopoly then is similar products like perfect competition, but only a few sellers. Okay, so what are some of the classic examples of an oligopoly? So I mentioned airlines, that's a classic example. Oil and gas producers are another. And so the way one often thinks about oligopoly is the gas station that's on every corner. So you often wonder why it is that you pull up to an intersection in a city, and typically there's not just one gas station sitting there at the intersection. There's two, maybe three. And they all post their prices out there, and they're often, at the same price. And so if, in this picture here, if Citgo were to lower its price, then Shell would likely adjust and respond to them. Similarly, they might want to kind of coordinate and say, oh, we'd actually charge a higher price. So Citgo could come along and be like, okay, I put a higher price out. Instead of $3.44, I'm going to put $3.60. And the owner of the Shell station might look at that and go, oh, yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to raise prices. I'm going to follow suit. But the Shell owner might also say, well, never mind. You go ahead and raise your price to $3.60. I'll just take all the customers at $3.44 a gallon. A new age example of oligopoly are search engines. So search engines are more or less similar products, but there's only a few of them. There's Google and Yahoo, Microsoft's Bing. There's not very many of them. And so they're all competing, to get you to come, but it's really in selling ads. And so there's an oligopoly there in selling ads through search engines.